Then following that, I went through a twisting, gruesome 6-year divorce saga. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that later on. That was part of the speech. But regardless of these things that happened in my life, I had a bigger dream. And that's what I share with my audiences. That regardless of what's going on in your life, all you have to do is have a bigger dream than that nightmare. And stay focused on it. I've taken the last 4 years out of my life to write an amazing book entitled Dream It First. Why? Because everything does start with a dream. But the subtitle of this book is very interesting. It is the 80-20 law to manifestation of dreams and goals. How many people here have ever heard of the 80-20 law? Okay, that's pretty good, because normally it's only about 20% or less of the population that knows about this law. Much less using this law as an effortless tool to begin manifesting your dreams and goals, using not someone else's resources, but only their own resources. Okay? I'm going to share with you how this amazing book came into existence. And this is where I talk about the divorce, okay? A few years ago, I had reached the summit of my career. I had everything that I thought I ever wanted. And then I found myself unexpectedly going through a long and gruesome chronic. Now, you all know what chronic is, right? 6-year divorce saga. Where I found myself just letting go everything that I had worked for in the preceding, I would say 8 to 10 years of my life. Now, this consisted of 2 boarding care facilities for the developmentally disabled that I owned and operated, a real estate office, and several $100,000 in cash. I had used all my resources, everything I thought I had to try to get myself out of this predicament, just to be able to move on with my life. I not only used my resources, I used other people's resources as well. I had gone through 5 judges, 3 attorneys, and had spent over $50,000 in attorney's fees alone, just to lose it all. I was totally exhausted, depleted, and no one could seem to help me. And I wanted so desperately to move on with my life. And then one day I was standing at my patio door overlooking my beautiful garden, and I quieted my mind. And identified in my own mind all my past dreams and accomplishments. Indeed, there have been many. But what I quietly discerned at that moment is that the majority of those dreams and goals, I would say approximately 80% or more of those dreams had been really accomplished using less of any of the resources I had available to me. That's my time, my money, my frustrations, my energies, my emotions. And it dawned on me at that time, if I had used this over the past intervals of my life to accomplish all those dreams and goals, why come I couldn't use it to get myself out of this predicament? And out of all the things that I had done, the only thing that I hadn't done, which was the smaller of all of them, was to simply let go. Just let go of all those larger, ostensible, bigger things outside of myself that at that time in my life was actually giving me less for using all my resources, all my efforts, my time, my money, my frustration, my energy. But yet over time hadn't given me my heart's desire. If anyone is sitting in this room this morning or this afternoon could just quiet your mind long enough, you actually see that the larger your dreams and goals in your life has really been accomplished using less of any of the resources you have available to you. Less of your time, your money, your pain, your frustrations. But the reason why most of us fail to isolate and identify this is because of our emotional, economical attachments and constraints to those larger, bigger things outside of ourselves that actually over time hasn't given us more, but actually has given us less to use all of our resources and effort. I'd like to share with you a story where you can actually see this 80-20 law in action. Okay? And then after that, I'm going to break this law down for you. At the time that I was writing my book, a gentleman shared with me, a young man shared with me how he was actually able to use this 80-20 law in his life to accumulate great wealth, financial independence. A dream that he often felt was very far-fetched for him, being that he was only an orderly working in a skilled nursing facility. He said when he was growing up, he lived in a small suburban town in Alexandria, Louisiana. And he and his parents and his siblings, they lived in a small 10-room home that consisted of 10 rooms. I'm not going to name them. But the interesting thing is he said he only found himself utilizing only 20% of those rooms. In this case, it was, of course, the kitchen, the bathroom, and what other room? Bedroom. Okay. So he said, you know, it only made sense to him when he decided to move to California, when he decided to deviate from the normal what everybody else was doing, and he decided to rent a small studio apartment in the Ruiverside district of Los Angeles. Now, he was often ridiculed and made fun of about 80% or more of the people in his life for choosing to live in such small living quarters, while they all lived in, of course, bigger homes and bigger apartments. But what he shared with me was interesting. He said by him just leveraging those 3 rooms, he was able to accumulate great wealth over a short interval of time in his life. He said when he decided to get his real estate license and began working part-time in that capacity, all while he continued to maintain his day job as an orderly, he quickly seen that he didn't need the monies that he was generating to support his lesbian lifestyle. He didn't need it for big mortgage, increased rent, fancy furniture, increased utilities, and all those other amenities that we know we all have to have in bigger living quarters. And he said that he was able to take that money and purchase several pieces of real property in today's deflated California real estate market, which he effortlessly, in a 3-month period of time, rented out to renters also displaced by that same market. Now all this happened while he continued to live in those little 3 rooms. Now all those people would often ridicule him and make fun of him. Now they continue to live in their big houses, spending all their resources, forcing all their efforts, not to accumulate wealth, but to simply stay where they are. You see, everyone that's sitting here in this room this afternoon, you're already sitting on your own acres of diamonds. They're there. But you haven't quieted your mind to isolate and see where those diamonds are. With this unprecedented economy, we're going to have to tap into resources that we never considered. Now, a definition of a resource is anything that you can pull from. Time, money, frustrations, pain, even other people. These are resources. If you can't pull from that resource, it's not a resource. It's an ability. Now, I know all this is pretty deep, but I'm going to take you somewhere that you've probably never been. This 80-20 law was discovered about 100 years ago by a gentleman by the name of Alfredo Pareto. It was later termed Pareto's principle. How many people have ever heard of Pareto's principle? Okay. You either heard of Pareto's principle or the 80-20 law, the 80-20 rule, the law of the vital few and the trivial many. I mean, this stuff is deep. But what he discovered over 100 years ago in Italy and England and other parts of the world was that approximately 80% or more of the wealth in the land was owned by only 20% of the population. Now, I know you've heard that, haven't you? Well, that's where it stemmed from. Now, Pareto, he was an economist. When young ladies she was the only one that knew about this law in detail. She told me that he was an economist, sociologist. But it was a phenomenal discovery, but because people couldn't do anything with it, he explained this theory so poorly that 80% or more of the people in that day didn't even know what he was talking about. So it sat dormant, quiet, for over 50 years. And then in the 1950s, another gentleman re-explored this law. His name was Joseph Durant. Not as a social economic theory, like Pareto, because he explained it in complex mathematical and econometric equations. He just simply defined it as a business theory. Now they teach it in some MBA programs, I believe, and most people are in marketing. If you're in marketing, you don't know about this law, you need to find out about this law. You've heard that 80% or more